fire. All right, and we are out of the spin cycle, and we are well into a world after a no fans WrestleMania in these uncertain times. Are you so sick of hearing that phrase? What's up, everybody? It's WrestleZone daily, nightly, whatever you want to call it. It's WrestleZone Radio coming to you on your podcast feed. Thank you for subscribing. If you don't subscribe, go ahead and do that. We're available to you audio-wise in your earbuds, wherever you want, with hours of free content every week. 4 episodes of WrestleZone Daily. The new show that we launched here with Dominic D'Angelo, who's on with me tonight, the Double D and DC show. There's too many D's there, okay? Too many D's. A lot of D's, all right? If you want the D, you're getting it, okay? If you're live with us here on Facebook or YouTube tonight, fire off your comments here about Raw. You'll hear your name in the podcast and coming up on the show. Maybe you want to turn people onto the show. That's a great thing you can do, all right? Share the link. Share that link. Pass it on to your friends. Tag your friends in the comments below and bring them into the virtual party. There's 2 of us, but this isn't us doing a show at you. This is us doing a show with you, okay? So if you're with us for the first time, don't be afraid to shout off what you thought about tonight's episode of Raw after WrestleMania. Dominic D'Angelo from WrestleZone. I am Kevin Kelm. So, Dom, Raw after WrestleMania, certainly challenged just to put on these shows with no fans. What did you think? Because WrestleMania, for the most part, was pretty well received. It got, under the circumstances, for the most part, a lot of fans enjoyed a majority of this weekend show, despite a couple of matches that some fans turned on. There was plenty of things a lot of fans really enjoyed about WrestleMania, taking that good momentum. You know, they touted that number tonight. I'm not bringing up the app tout. I'm bringing up other social media that people are actually on. But 13.8 million interactions over all the big social media platforms. That means a lot of people were actually seeing the show, and I would assume maybe a lot of people at home enjoyed WrestleMania over 2 nights in quarantine here. What do you think? Did WWE take that momentum into Raw tonight?
I think a bit. I don't think it is hard to do under the circumstances, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe starting it off with almost, I think it was over an hour of like the Street Profits tied in with Bianca Belair into that. I think that kind of dragged on and seemed a little heavy-handed. I liked what they did starting off, even after the second DQ between Bianca Belair and Zelina. I figured, okay, that's great. That's a good way to end it. But no, they kept it going. It was like, okay, they're just trying to make up some time. But I'm sure a lot of people didn't like maybe some of the squash matches that they had with like Seth and Nia Jax. I thought that was appropriate. I thought the Apollo Crews and Aleister Black match was great. But
fantastic. Yes, absolutely fantastic.
Very well performed, but like, to throw Apollo Crews just back in there out of nowhere. Honestly, I tweeted this out. I had no idea he left Raw. So, like, them saying that he came back to Raw, I was like, wasn't he already there? And then it's just they didn't. He hasn't been booked appropriately over the course of his career in Raw on the main roster. So it's just like
for you to buy that he could hang in there with the guy that they put so much time into in Aleister Black.
Yes, and so It took Aleister Black a long time to finish him off. But you want to if you're really wanting to put Apollo Crews over as a new developing star, which honestly I kind of don't think they are. I think they're just using him for right now. So it just didn't make sense to me. But it was a great match nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. I got someone texting me here on screen saying they can't see me on screen. If you guys can't see me on screen, let me know, and I'll just reboot my camera while we're
here. I can't see you either, Kev. I just thought it was.
You can't see me either? All right, give me a second. We're going to hop right back. Continue to tell the people what you thought of tonight's Raw.
Okay, yeah. I overall, I really did like the main event, too. It was kind of a surprise, obviously, but I figured that's a good use for Big Show. I mean, he's turned face heel 82 separate times on occasion. So him not being there and then showing up again after he was just a face was kind of like, okay, whatever. But it's a good position to put him in. And overall, it put Drew McIntyre in a good position as well. So I really like that aspect of things. That I did not appreciate them kind of saying like, oh, hey, we're going to recap and show you all about Edge and Randy Orton and the Boneyard match as well. They kind of teased it like they're going to show the whole thing, and they didn't show the whole thing. So I didn't kind of like that. Overall, Yeah, it wasn't a bad show. It wasn't super duper memorable, but I figured for what it was okay. It was okay. I still can't see it, Kev, by the way. I hear you, but I can't see it.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I gotta love this software, man. It is always something, isn't it?
You can be like the Wizard of Oz and just like the man behind the curtain.
I know, but it doesn't make for a great video afterwards. I don't know what. I'll say this: Be Live, you are the service provider that I pay monthly for this service that you do not do well with. Because they likely use manual server diagnostics, which is the reason why this doesn't work, and that's why I'm stuck in this position. I'm going to keep rolling here with you. We got 46 people streaming with us live. You guys can beef that number up, even if our provider isn't great. So Drew McIntyre in a big situation. They tease some type of thing that happened after the match at WrestleMania. We got everything's pre-taped. So it's all Terminator timeline. They could have filmed this 24 hours ago. It doesn't really matter. Under the circumstances, he gets a surprise challenge from the Big Show, who comes out and talks a bunch of trash at him, says, "Oh, I'm not going to challenge you for a match, but if you don't take a match with me, what does that say about you as a champion?" And it was very much the old veteran playing the new breakout superstar. I wouldn't say that Drew's a new superstar. He's been around the game for quite some time, but certainly this is a new challenge for him to hold a championship after taking off Brock. I enjoyed the match. It was very, very competitive. Big Show talked a whole bunch of trash, and it added a whole lot to the match for him to bark up there. I mean, you had 2.5 hours plus of a lot of in-ring action with a lot of cruiserweight guys running around the ring, going very fast, smacking each other. But Big Show got so much out of his 5 minutes. And I think that says so much about him as a veteran superstar to understand how to tell a story with no fans. This is
Kev, we lost you there. But I will say, too, yeah, I thought Big Show did an excellent job in regards to just playing to an empty crowd. And the trash talk he does, I think that really highlighted the aspect of it, but also played up to Big Show's strengths in regards to, but he can't, do all the crazy stuff that we see nowadays, but he's able to have that presence.
back. They told you it was going to happen after commercial break. Under any other circumstances, you'd be like, why didn't they do this surprise? Because everyone wants this surprise pop. Fans love that. They love the Royal Rumble come out. They love the post-Raw Mania serviceable things that fans expect those. They've been built up for those anticipating things. I don't know if you can anticipate those things. So they kind of have to deliver on something you're anticipating that they can't give you because the game is completely different now. And that leads us into, how do you think WWE's doing with no fans? I think AEW's done a good job. With WWE, it kind of changes match to match. We had some pre-filmed things this weekend with the Firefly Funhouse and the Boneyard match, which had some mixed reviews, but I mean, the Boneyard match got universally great reviews. People loved the Firefly Funhouse. I was on the fence about it, and I rewatched it again today, and I kind of enjoyed it the second time around. But how do you think WWE's doing in this kind of pre-film everything, no fans environment?
I think they start off really badly. I think they've improved. But overall, and some of the elements they're compensating for, like, for example, between when Bianca Belair and Zelina Vega were fighting each other, you had, the noise outside of the ring. And I think that provided some nice touches to it. But there's still just some aspect of, I don't know, like the Performance Center just looking too shiny, if that makes any sense. I think the environment still presents a Raw that we're all used to seeing, but I think that's kind of at its detriment in a way. It doesn't give it any uniqueness or anything like that. So I think they're improving as they go, but I think they still kind of have some work to do to elevate on the level of how AEW has been presenting their empty arena stuff. So it's kind of my take on it, I think. I want to get your thoughts more. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. It's. I think WWE's gotten progressively better with it as it went along. I think they're just circumstantially in a more challenging position because they have to produce so much more content than AEW does. You know, they have 3 different weekly television shows, and they had WrestleMania, and they had plenty of things to deliver in terms of what they're committed to. Now, you and I were following the news, and I know you were as well, that there was talk of WWE potentially going on some type of break coming out of WrestleMania. Now it does not seem like that's going to happen, that they're going to take talent off. They're not on the road, but I mean out of the Performance Center. What's the latest word you think on where it's going? The word I've heard is WWE is trying to find a way to film this week's SmackDown. They promoted an episode of SmackDown that will be new with the fallout of WrestleMania. They did that this week on Raw tonight. We are getting an episode of NXT that we know has already been filmed that will air this Wednesday. But what is the future of WWE moving forward in these uncertain times with states on shutdown, stay-at-home orders? What's next?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, because Florida is really one of those states that are really, aren't they doing this whole stay at home where it's less, you can't really do a whole lot. Theirs kind of came in right as WWE was filming over 2 days WrestleMania. The Boneyard match, I learned today, was filmed over 8 hours, there was a production company that was brought in that built the set. There were certain things they couldn't film because they didn't have a permit to film it there, so they kind of had to actually change how they did the match, and that was a match that was really well received and was good. WWE answering the circumstances and giving you a pre-film match, and the Firefly Funhouse. So you can't do that with every match. No, you definitely can't.
I think you'll get more of it. I think you'll get more of those. I think you get more of those in the future.
I'll touch on that in a second too, but I think part of it, if you look at like what Dana White's doing, and greatly to his detriment, as far as a brand for UFC, where he's just taking all the gloves off and trying to find any way possible to have a UFC match going on. I think Vince is of that same mindset, like, hey, I'm going to damn well do it whether you like it or not. So they're going to find...
And AEW is too. And All Elite Wrestling is too.
They're still going to go from that retrospect too of like, okay, looks like Georgia's being shut down, so we got to find another place. So it's like, honestly, I don't agree with any of it. I honestly feel we shouldn't have wrestling at all right now. But if that's the route they're taking, they're going to find a way to do it. It's going to happen. And hopefully they just do it in a smart and safe manner as best they can.
Mm-hmm. But, and it does change the expectations for what events are. We have Money in the Bank coming up here, and that event has been marketed for May 10th, and it will be streaming on the WWE Network. But it doesn't look like that event's going to be in Baltimore. It doesn't look like we're going to see that at the Royal Farms Arena. And I think we still have a quarantine effort that's been expanded for another 30 days. We have, the global outbreak is serious in the United States, where WWE and AEW do a majority of their business. Still very serious. And I don't see people rushing to fill an arena by the tens of thousands, even when this is done. So if you do see WWE and AEW filming their content in front of fans, you may have to get to the use of the idea of maybe a Raw in front of what you would think is an NXT crowd, or an AEW and what you would think is an NXT crowd, or even a small independent crowd. So when you start seeing fans come back to arenas, it's not going to be giant arenas. We could have Raw in a ballroom or something. We could have Raw on a military base. That is something I've thought of.
That's a great idea. Space. I like that.
And also, you're going to see goodwill stuff from WWE. People are going to say, "Oh, they're pimping this out," and AEW is going to do something like this too. They're going to bring first responders. Someone's going to set up a ring in the parking lot of a hospital. It's going to happen when we're on the other side of this thing, and that could be the new equivalent of tribute to the True. So the culture of wrestling is going to change. But I know you see this and you follow the independent wrestling scene. Pittsburgh has a hotbed there, and Chicago has as well. They're the worst hit by this. I mean, they don't have the cash reserve that a WWE or an AEW has. New Japan Pro Wrestling, they've been on pause for a consistent period of time, and they may be on pause again, even longer. So independents are hit the worst by it. So when everyone says like, "Oh, WWE needs to stop," like, they're the ones who get to keep going because they have the money and they have the backing and they have this infrastructure built around what they have, and they have the contracts to fulfill. So they kind of have some business obligations to do it too. What do you think of that? Do you think a pause is the right thing to do? I know you mentioned that earlier. I'm of the thought, if you do it and it's safe and everyone feels it's okay and they want to do it and you can do it and there's no fans there and you limit it as much as they have. I heard Ric Flair today, our friend Nick Hausman over at Wrestling Inc. Got to interview him, and Ric Flair said Charlotte felt completely fine with going. And his daughter competing this weekend on WrestleMania, he said if I tried to tell her not to go, she'd still go. Well, that's another conversation. But he said I felt safe with her being there. So what do you think? Is it not safe? Is it something where these organizations shouldn't be running stuff? AEW's taped out through at least a better part of May. WWE does not have an episode of SmackDown, as far as we know, taped for this Friday.
I think we don't know that if it's safe or not, and I think that's the problem. Is like they could be taking every precaution. Heck, there could be no absolute sign of the COVID-19 going around in the environment, but we don't know. Mm-hmm. And like it's the fact of the unknown, and it's very reckless on in a lot of aspects of wrestling to keep it going. And as a writer and as a fan too as well, I feel it's selfish of us to want to have that product right now.
Okay.
Yeah. In benefit. That's kind of my viewpoint in a lot of it. I do feel, I'm sure they are taking the precautions and they're doing what needs to be done. But obviously, I just feel, given the circumstance of all these other major sports league, bigger companies that are even more so than WWE, such as the NBA, NFL, whatever, has kind of tabled a lot of it. Maybe the NFL not so much, but a lot of that speaks volumes, and almost like Dana White, Vince McMahon, and even Tony Khan might need to follow suit at some point here.
Charles J. Serio texting in, what are the hopes of having SummerSlam in Boston? Is it going to happen or does it cancel? Well, that's in August. I would say a lot of things are 50-50, at least in May or June. If I was AEW, I'd be very concerned about what you're going to do with Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. That's coming up, I believe, the weekend before Memorial Day, right before that.
Yeah. You're correct. I think it's like May 23rd.
Yeah. So, I mean, and they have episodes of Dynamite taped out there. They have majority of the TNT title tournament taped out there. So they had to scramble. WWE seems to have some plan, but we don't have any public knowledge of what that plan may be. August, SummerSlam, a little bit too far to call that one. I think a little bit too far out to call that one. I do think that'll be a bigger event than it may have planned to have been in terms of the expectations for something like that. I've heard a lot of fans ask questions about SummerSlam. Is it going to be a two-night affair? Are they going to try and make it feel like a WrestleMania? SummerSlam is always a big show, and there's some years where it was the second biggest show of the year for WWE in terms of what they build it as and what they put on it. I think now the expectations for SummerSlam are going to be much, much bigger, especially if this is them returning to full-on arena shows, big spectacles, big pay-per-views. A month ago, we were talking about WWE moving their big events off of the network, keeping the network with some other, prime content. Now, I would say it looks like they're sticking with the network. And if you want to get it on pay-per-view, sure, because they know how uncertain everything is right now. I think the pirate ship they built themselves with the network looks a little bit safer than maybe it did a while ago, because there's going to be some changes in the media world. There's going to be some really, really big changes in the media world, and you haven't even seen the beginning of them just yet, because advertising is completely different. Yeah, I think WWE is in a good position in the long run. AEW is good because they got the TV contract before that. If they didn't get the TV contract before this, I'd be concerned because there's a dropout in ad money now in media widespread, and you don't see it on the surface, but I can tell you it's going to be there in other ways. That's why you see so much of the advertising built around like the fast food ads that were on Raw tonight. No contact, no service. There's some companies that don't want to advertise like that. you know, that that don't want to run their ads like that and are trying to figure out how to add around that, and because it's such a different landscape that affects your money then too, so when there's a storm outside, it's hard to sell a hot dog. You know what I mean? So there's a storm and we're dealing with it. So I think WWE is going to make SummerSlam a big deal. And I think they're money wise, they're in the strongest position of all the companies simply because of what they built up and what the brand is. If they had to stop filming shows this Friday and pre-film everything, and the entire show was just promos and matches that have already been in the can off the network, they can do it. And that could happen this Friday. Yeah. That would be a tougher situation for All Elite Wrestling or any other promotion.
Mm-hmm. It totally would be. But a lot of the things too, even on a smaller scale like NWA, MLW has been fortunate enough that they've taped their Tijuana recordings a week or so before this started happening. So they have probably about 5 or so weeks in the can for themselves. But you look at what NWA, right? So you look at what NWA Power is doing. They're churning out a little bit of content here and there. And I know speaking with Nick Aldis and hearing what Dave Lagana has done for that, what plans they have, they're still going to try to make the ball rolling. But you're right. It's got to be tough for those other companies, even like AEW that has that strong roster and a lot of legacy talent backstage and everything. It's got to be tough for them to kind of, in comparison to WWE, because, I mean, WWE's got all that content, like you mentioned. But, I mean, they're creative enough that they can do stuff, I believe. And I'm sure they have something set in the back of their minds that if they need to do that, they have it capable of doing it. And plus the month in advance, like you mentioned, is great to have too as well. So
yeah, we don't mean to talk too much about coronavirus, but it still is the number one story.
It's the top heel in the wrestling world. In the world.
It's the top heel, baby. It's healing everybody. It's booking the territory. And it certainly has changed everything in the world. So if we didn't talk about it, I think we'd be remiss. But I thought Raw did as good a job as it could be. I enjoyed the fun surprise. Normally I wouldn't rate the show, but I would say out of 10, I'm going to give it a soft 7. It was almost a 6, but that Big Show curveball at the end, I was like, oh, this is a Paul Heyman move if I've ever seen one, and Paul Heyman is a guy who knows how to use the bench. He's the Raw creative director right now. He certainly has his eyes on new names. Apollo Crews he utilized tonight, Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. So I enjoy the direction that Raw is going in terms of putting some fresh faces. Didn't feel Nia Jax coming back randomly tonight, but I think she's somebody who enjoys being booed and had to talk up her match. But overall, pretty solid episode of Raw coming off for WrestleMania. But the news is so uncertain. Or how tired am I of saying that phrase here? Oh, so uncertain. Just like my streaming provider, it is uncertain what's going on here. But I need to talk to you about something I'm very, very proud of you for doing. So I'm just the social media director. And I produce a majority of the content that we have in our podcast feed, but I always enjoy hearing about, hey, this is coming up. I got this interview. I got this. You were crushing it, StarCast, this year. You got all the big names here. You spoke with Nick Aldis, the NWA World Champion, and now you settled into a very, very good slot here with Danny Cage, who is one of the most reputable trainers in professional wrestling. He has talent in WWE, NXT, AEW, all around the world. He's been off camera, one of those very impressionable, has his fingerprints on a lot of different things, players in wrestling. And Danny Cage is a great mind. We've had a good relationship with him at WrestleZone over the years. And now we're doing the show with him. Tell me about it. I listened to the first episode. If you haven't heard it, this guy lays out the best ideas for how to completely film wrestling without fans. It's really, really interesting. I really suggest, especially for people that love something like the Boneyard match, something like the Firefly Funhouse. This is a guy who's training wrestlers and saying, this is how wrestlers need to be in 2020. And this is how wrestling needs to be presented for the psychology of it that still is old school. I really loved it. What do you think of it? Tell me about the new show with Danny Cage.
Yeah, thank you, Kev. It's the Danny Cage and Double D show. So pretty straightforward with that. But Cage, I'm going to call him Nostradamus this coming up, because he predicted, he was like, they should have music playing in the background of some of this stuff to create an element. And sure enough, The Undertaker had like Metallica playing in the background and all that stuff. So I was like, it's pretty badass, pun intended. But it was, I mean, to get his insight, he's just hearing him in this first episode, you can see how much of an innovator he is and how open he is to ideas, but also how no nonsense he is as well. And I think that's perfect for what he's doing as a trainer, a head coach, and an owner of the Monster Factory. Because I mean, when you're training these guys, they're going to be out on their own soon enough. It's going to be up to them to create their own stuff and put it out there. And I think Danny Cage exemplifies that. In this first episode, he talks about the importance of social media for a wrestler, even if they don't like using social media, how imperative it is to use it to your advantage as your career. Just it's your job to do it. And then he comes up with he has these other different aspects and touches upon whether it's with WWE. He likes some certain takes in AEW as well. He's a very fascinating cat, and I'm learning a lot just by sitting there and letting him go and giving his insight. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm hoping to do a little bit more stuff with them. We're gonna probably be recording tomorrow, and I'd love to get feedback on it and see what the listeners think about it as well. But it's been a ride, man.
When do those episodes drop? You just need to subscribe to WrestleZone Radio.
Yep.
You'll get everything in one feed. You don't have to subscribe to a different podcast. When do we get those episodes every single week?
So typically we started recording last Thursday. So typically they should probably be maybe Friday or late Thursday is when the new episode will come out. We haven't really set up a consistent schedule quite yet, but that's probably might be the plan coming forward as we get our sea legs going a little bit, so to speak. So,
all right. So I'm getting this question here. I'm going to take it. We'll take a couple of questions here at the end of the show. People with multiple questions. This is Babs J is texting in saying, please, is Brock leaving WWE? There's been some chitter chatter amongst fans. I haven't seen any reputable reports of this just yet about Brock Lesnar being upset with how WrestleMania went this weekend, or last week how it was taped. And he was very upset that he dropped the title. Here's the thing. We haven't seen a website report that. We haven't been able to aggregate that news from another site. You know, WrestleZone, we break some of the news, and some other places break it, and then we run with the news as well. We haven't seen that story. I've seen that exclusively off fans talking. And sometimes fans speculate, and then one fan says they heard it, and then it becomes a story, and then it snowballs into something. And this is one of those cases. Just like you and I heard the chatter that WrestleMania was going to be moved to Madison Square Garden. And I was just like, do you guys know how bad things are in New York right now? And then that is not me making any light of what is going on here with the world. There are a lot of people in serious danger, and New York City is, for lack of a better phrase, a hotspot right now for the coronavirus. That is not going to happen. So this is another situation where I can tell you, you and I both know this, Brock Lesnar got a very, very good deal to come back to WWE. And he has been a featured player every time they go to Saudi Arabia, which is one of their most lucrative contracts running right now. And he is one of the more high-paid profile superstars. He was on the Forbes top 10 of WWE superstars in terms of earnings. I don't see that changing. I don't see him going to UFC. I don't see him being involved. I see him maybe being involved with training fighters and training different people. I know he's had a guest role for the University of Minnesota as a wrestling coach, an honorary coach there, a role he's very passionate about, and he was very successful there as an amateur freestyle wrestler. I don't see him leaving WWE. I don't see him being done with WWE. I'm seeing him continuing to being a featured player. But Brock's not your champion anymore. You've done the thing where you build him up and he puts the title on somebody. You've done it now 2 WrestleManias in a row. He's been a part of WWE since 2012 once again. A lot of people don't like the Beast, but they care when he is in the ring, don't they? They definitely care. He is definitely still a superstar with billing and promoting. And I didn't hate the match with Drew. In terms of it being like a car crash, it worked. It worked better than Goldberg versus Braun, if you want to compare the 2 big male championship matches there. I thought it was significantly better. And also, Brock gave a lot of himself to Drew. So I say that whole story is baloney. I don't think Brock's going anywhere. I don't think you'll see him for a while. Maybe we'll see him sometime in the summer. But what do you do with Brock now? What's the next move for Brock? Obviously, we kind of know that Drew McIntyre is going to be taking in a bunch of different comers here. And it seems like he's going to be a fighting champion that you get to see on Raw. Something they should do. You don't get to see Brock on Raw all the time.
Yeah.
But what do you do with Brock now? What's the next move for him?
That's a tough thing. I think to add to your point too, Drew McIntyre has given really high praise to Brock in regards to how much he's helped put him over. So I can't imagine Brock being like super upset about like, oh, I got to drop the title to Drew. I don't buy into that. And I also don't buy into that. Like Brock Lesnar's not about like being the champion. I think he does it. He enjoys what he's doing, but I don't think he's doing it just to be the champion. He's getting paid very well, and he enjoys that aspect of it. So I
agree with you.
Yes.
Chris Lies texting here. This is a good question. I've heard this from fans. Once again, another thing where fans say something enough that it has to be true. If everyone's tweeting about it, Dominic, it must be true. I read it on the internet. This question: What plans for WWE adding live fan streams during empty arena shows? WWE certainly didn't have a lack of interaction online this weekend. They touted that number today. We received the press release. All right, so they want WrestleZone to know about it, so they want you to know about it. If 13.8 million impressions were done on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that means millions more actually physically were watching this show in real time. And so for each one of those tweets, Facebook posts, Instagram things, think how many people actually see that. That's a lot of free marketing that you didn't pay for. Yeah. And so WWE certainly impacted a lot of people's lives. Could they physically do this? Could they pull this off in terms of live streaming fans reacting to things? Yeah, they could. But who are those fans? What are the demographics? WWE is a pretty diverse audience. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just men. They look at the Raw ring. There's a lot of kids that watch it. There's a lot. The international audiences are completely different. If you talk to India, there's a lot of people under the age of 25 that watch the show. So it depends on where you're pulling that information from, where you're going to pull that live feed from. How do you know you're not going to have someone like flipping a bird at a camera or right. You go with them live? I don't think you're going to get live streams. I do, especially if it's taped. But then if you're doing live streams and it's a pre-taped show that's in an empty arena, the logistics of that become very, very hard. I can say this because we've dealt with this on the radio station we're on, 101 WKQX. You're like, all right, how do we keep things going? We can't do live shows, so how are we doing things? So I think you'll see more of WWE superstars interacting with fans in live video online. That's becoming such a big thing, teleconferencing. It won't surprise me if there is content that WWE puts out digitally, whether it be free or on the network, that involves that. They had a whole lot of fun with it this past weekend for WrestleMania. Usually WrestleMania, you get a bunch of content before even the big shows because they know a lot of fans are subscribing to the network. And this is the one time that a lot of people watch wrestling every year, the casuals. So I think that's a good move. But putting fans in a live stream, logistically hard, because then how do you keep those fans from not releasing whatever results they got to watch on a private stream of the show before it came out? I think that's another thing is WWE, whatever they did to keep the spoilers of this year's WrestleMania from coming out, they did a great job. Because all we knew is that Braun Strowman was going to take on Goldberg. That's the only bit of information that got out before WrestleMania. The fact that you didn't have any of the results of those matches get out, and this show was taped a week in advance, that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Vince threatening your job too, if you like reveal anything, it's you're nixed. That's probably a pretty good drawing. And to go with the live stream stuff too, I can't really take the fans' reactions that much on Raw in the first place, as it is.
Why do you hate the fans?
I can barely take my own reaction when it comes to Raw and what I put out there. So why do I want to see a group of fans reacting to something?
It's official.
Yes,
it is official. Dominic D'Angelo is anti-fun.
I'm an anti-fun guy. Anti-fun guy.
Anti-fun. Can't have joy. Joy, not a fan of it.
Not happening here.
Not a fan of
it. Nope. Nope. I hate the fun.
I hate the fun. Can't have it. let's knock it off. All
Not
right,
for me.
we are not watching wrestling to be entertained. Okay, stop it.
No,
Knock it off. All right, I love this one. Ed Berg texting here. Who wins Money in the Bank? Well, it's pretty early to say that. I mean, we're just out of WrestleMania, and will Money in the Bank be all guys from Raw? Will it be all the guys and gals from SmackDown? I think we get 4 superstars from Raw. Do we get anyone from NXT involved in that match? I think this is the first year when you start treating NXT as a same level brand. Now, some fans simply just don't see it that way because they don't run it in arenas, and AEW beats them on Wednesdays and all that crap, right? I think the interesting thing you could do with this show is throw some NXT names in there and shake it up, and I think that'd be appealing. I'm sitting in my Survivor Series chair right now. I thought Survivor Series was one of the best shows that WWE did last year, top to bottom, and the NXT matchups created such new fun dynamics and added such a new flavor to everything on the show, and it upped the game for the matches you were seeing with established guys for Raw or SmackDown. So I loved it. I thought it was fun, and I think this is a circumstance with kind of like one of those everybody go for one thing matches where it could be good, it could be really fun to see some elements in there. But there's still a lot of work you have to do. We have to see how we're going to get through all these matches that NXT has. We have to see how things settle in for the new champions. I don't think we get those matches put together right away because once again, everything's up in the air. I don't know. There's a lot of people in I think Aleister Black is a guy who's red hot right now. Him with a briefcase, his nature, his methodical walkout nature, he does talk, but it's very calculated. I think he would be really fun to see have that briefcase. Bailey and Sasha would be a fun situation. Sasha Banks with the Money in the Bank briefcase for me would be the most entertaining. If you're asking me who I'm picking, I think those are 2 entertaining picks. Who would you pick to have the briefcase if it happened today?
I think Aleister Black's a great pick. I think that's a really sound one because it's kind of almost like it's such a contrast, him carrying a briefcase around, but I think it would work. I like the as far as SmackDown goes, I'm trying to think for that. Man, who have they? Like, I always feel like Daniel Bryan should be in the mix somehow.
Oh, dude, totally. I thought Daniel Bryan had a pretty underrated match this weekend.
Kev, that was probably my favorite match actually of the show.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
I was screaming. My internet went out during that.
Oh, no.
And then it came on right when the match. It reminded me of the old days when like your pay-per-view would go in and out, and you'd be like, I just paid $50. Yeah, it was the same. I had to rewatch it afterwards. But here's a question coming in here from James Espanto Fernando and I can't be too loud. I'm in the laundry.
That's fantastic. Holy shit.
Yeah. All right. One of the number one fans. Got to catch up with James here. He says, "Big Kev, Dub D." He hands out all the nicknames. He's in the WZ Lee family, man. He goes, "Who's your pick for Yummy in the Bank 2020? # the burgers are their money." Now, Dominic, I think you're involved in our little club, and we're nearly 40 minutes into the show tonight. I can talk about this. We had the Royal Yumble, our fast food mascot match where we reanimate all the different fast food mascots in a video game. We had one hell of a Royal Yumble. We made a T-shirt for it. Okay, yes. It's T-shirt official. Last year we had Yummy in the Bank. What soda pop do you drink? For me, it's delicious Dr. Pepper. 23 flavors. Not a sponsor, but Dr. Pepper. If you want to help me pay my rent, I'm into it. What brands do we got? Who's coming to the table? Who's coming to the table with the trench blade?
I mean, if we're going by the previous Royal Yumbles experiences, I mean,
who will win the golden coupon?
Didn't the Coca-Cola Bear really have a good run during that match?
He did. Yes, he was.
Yeah. I was impressed.
He was all coked up.
Low key was a Little Caesar. I thought he did a very excellent job. Tony the Tiger, is he going to be involved at all? I know he's serial, but can he get in the mix at all by chance?
He's a serial killer. He's
right?
a serial killer. You get.
I think you can't beat. He's got to have the height advantage. He's got to have the height advantage. With Tiger King going on too, it's a perfect booking opportunity to put him up.
Do we put Joe Exotic in this match? Because technically, Joe. Maybe we put Carol Baskin in there because
do that.
We just go out there crazy. We just go out there all crazy. It's been a fun episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Yes, we will have Yummy in the Bank in the next few weeks. We'll have that streaming for you. And thank you so much for supporting the show. If this is your first time watching the show, let us know what you think. Give it a like, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on the podcast feed, subscribe to WrestleZone Radio. Give it a look, and you can check out that great show that Dominic has. Double D in the DC show. I said it correctly.
It's actually Danny Cage in the Double D show, but you're close.
Oh, he gets top billing. He gets top billing. I'm sorry. It's too many D's.
A lot of D's happen.
It's too many D's. I'm tripping on D's here, baby. All right. So thank you so much for supporting the show. We will return. I believe midday on Tuesday if you're on the live streaming side of things, but just make sure your feed is hot. You can always watch the shows on demand whenever you want, and when you do, please remember to do the most important thing while watching wrestling. It is to unfortunately, Dominic does not want you to do this.
I can say it if you want
you to be very serious about wrestling.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say it, but you have to mean it now. If I pitched you for the closing phrase,
Dominic,
you have to enjoy it.
I don't want to see your reactions. I don't want to see your reactions, but you guys enjoy wrestling, okay? Enjoy it.
I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me you're having fun.
Nothing. I don't want to see nothing. Just enjoy wrestling, though, okay?